When you see the words the reframe, what does it mean to you? What does it mean to reframe anything? Welcome to the Tie-Dyed Therapist, everyone. I'm your host, Richard Killian, and today we're going to be talking about the concept of the reframe, so stay tuned. Thank you for joining me today. The reframe is originally from cognitive behavioral therapy, where the main focus of the therapy is about Socratic questioning, Socratic reasoning. In other words, when you have a thought, whether it's negative or positive, but mostly negative, it's important to sometimes question that thought for validity. Because if the thought is not valid, if there's evidence against it, then it's not serving you or your purposes very well. What do I mean by that? Well, let's say that you have a recurring negative thought about someone or a situation or a set of circumstances, and you keep repeating to yourself that negative thought. If left unquestioned, if left unchecked, that thought becomes a bad mood. It becomes a way of behaving. It becomes making maybe some critical mistakes in your behavior with other people. Anything can happen when a negative thought is sort of left to run amok, so to speak. So when I wrote this thing about the reframe in my wisdom card deck, I was really talking about the way that people use cognitive behavioral therapy to reframe thoughts. Now, when I sit with clients and we look at their negative thoughts, what I discover is that there's always a grain of truth in most of the things that people say to themselves. It's not that everything is completely 100% inaccurate. So I ask the client, what is truthful about what they're saying to themselves? And generally, they can find one piece or one little nugget of truth. Then I ask them to reframe that thought in a way that's both truthful and helpful. So in other words, I want people to have a realistic thought about the way they're thinking, not necessarily a sugar-coated way or a catastrophized way of thinking. I want people to be as realistic in their thinking as possible. In cognitive behavioral therapy, the idea of Socratic reasoning is to really look at the validity of your thoughts, to also go through a whole pros and cons thing about, how does this help me? How does this not help me? What is accurate about that thought? What is not accurate about that thought? In other words, you're looking for evidence at all times to see, am I thinking properly about this situation or about this person? So that when you think accurately, you make accurate decisions. You make reasonable decisions. The reframe is really so important for people to start getting the hang of. Now, I'll be honest with you. When people start looking at their thoughts in a cognitive behavioral therapy method, it can feel rather tedious at times because we might have you do a thought check to see, like, what are you thinking and how many times do you think that and why do you think that? It can be really sort of an overwhelming task initially, but then what people come to discover is that generally speaking, there's a pattern of thoughts that are going on at any one time. If you think something once and it's negative, chances are you've thought it hundreds of times and it becomes part of your self-talk. So once you're able to sort of break the code and you understand, wow, these are the things that I say at this time of day, in this sort of situation, under these circumstances, then you can start making great progress in reframing these thoughts into something that's more reasonable. I never want to say to somebody, the thinking that you have is totally inaccurate, because I don't believe that. But I do believe that most of us, including myself, many times have thought in ways that are just not helpful to our overall well-being. And so that's the reason why I came up with this card called the REFRAME. Now, one thing that I've discussed on my channel, and I also had an interview recently with Denise Siegel about this, is that the cards, the concepts of the cards, yes, I have a booklet that goes with the cards, and they tell you what I thought about the card. But more importantly, it's more what you think about the card. It's more about what you think about the concept. So when you see the words, the REFRAME, what does it mean to you? What does it mean to reframe anything? And what does it mean for you in your life? That's really what counts here. So even though I've given you the definition of what I think the REFRAME is, it's really your interpretation that matters. Thanks very much for watching today. I'll see you another time. Bye-bye.